Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of NetSupport Insights. I'm Maggie, your host for today, and I have with me the lovely Laura, who many of you, if you're on the Ed Twitter universe, will know as @Technology Laura. She is a teacher in Tennessee and is an ed tech enthusiast, self-ascribed, but also, as you will see, very much so an ed tech enthusiast and very knowledgeable about the topic. So thanks for joining us today, Laura.
I'm excited for our conversation together.
Me too. So, one of the things that it's always great to know is kind of how you got started in the Twitterverse of ed techiness and how everything kind of jumbled on from there.
Yeah, so I believe I started a Twitter account, I think sometime maybe 2017, and I just wanted to showcase what my students were doing to stakeholders in the district and then in the community. And then really when COVID started happening, I ran back to my Twitter account and I was looking for ideas, learning from other passionate educators, and then I also wanted to share insights and tips that I found useful since I was doing hybrid teaching. So I just felt like, all of us had to pivot so quickly, and that really blew up and just gained a lot of support from other teacher Twitter users and ed tech companies that had a lot of great tips and tricks for teachers. So it just kind of blew up basically with COVID and just kind of networking to grow in my practice as well.
That's awesome. And I love that it started out for, you showcasing your students. You wanted to be able to show what's been going on in the classroom, what they're doing, what you're doing, which I think is what EduTwitter, the educational side of Twitter really is about collaborating, sharing those resources and giving really positive stories in interesting times like COVID, but just in the day-to-day, seeing what people really can do with whatever resources that they have, which is awesome. So you are very regular at sharing your tips and tricks. I think there's something almost every day, if not every day, regularly going out there. Is your inspiration just from the things that you're doing in the classroom? Is it from things you're hearing from other people? Where does it come from?
Yeah, so I always try to post things that I have integrated in my classroom because I think it's important to be a practitioner. And then I base it kind of on my student feedback and overall engagement. If I see one, ed tech tool really well received from my students, and I figure that is buy-in and that other educators could benefit with their students, of course. Watch some YouTube videos to gain kind of new ideas as well, like if there's a new game coming out or program through one of those tools. But really the heart of it all is for the students and student outcomes. So I try to share like some of their work if I can, and then how I've integrated it, and just maybe inspire others that they would want to try that tool and have success as well.
Awesome. Now you have a good mix of teachers where you have the ones who are early adopters. They love the technology. They can toss it in the classroom, no problem. And you have the other end of the spectrum where, bringing things in, adding in technology could be a little bit more intimidating or a little bit scary. So if you're a new teacher in the classroom or a teacher who's new to incorporating a lot of tools and tech into their classroom, what are some good kind of kicking off, getting started tools or some good advice that you could give to them to start integrating technology as part of their overall lesson plans?
Yeah, so I really think it's important to whatever learning management system that you have. For example, I have Google Classroom. I just give all of the announcements, the homework, the assignments, it's all paperless, because that has really helped me stay organized. It's a lot of work on the back end, but then I think as the year progresses, and if you start with that strong precedent, like you're organized and you have a system, and then you also teach and train your students how to navigate that platform, whatever that may be. Like, where do I go when I need my makeup work? Where do I go when I need feedback from my teacher? Where do I go when I need to message him or her? So I think that is really powerful, and to be really passionate and try to be as excited as you can about integrating new tools, because the students feed off your energy. So I found that very evident when I started trying GimKit. I wasn't really familiar with it like as a student, and then I tried it one day and I thought, let's try this new tool. I just got excited. They got really excited. So I just think it's infectious. And start small. It can be very overwhelming. There are so many awesome tools out there, but you kind of have to start figuring out what maybe works for you and your content, or is appropriate for the kids. But also encourage teachers just like to learn alongside of your students and don't fret, if they want to help you, because I have a lot of students who have been, just really helpful with me, give me a little, trick, or tell me like, no, you're not doing that right, but this is how you do it. And so I think it's an awesome opportunity to grow together. And you don't have to know all the answers, how like everything works. You're growing together. And I think that is powerful if we could just, be transparent and show that growth mindset with our students and learn together.
That's awesome. And I think it's Carl Hooker talks about like failing and how great and important it is to fail and like learning from those outcomes. And by you doing that with the students, you're showing them it's okay to work through the process rather than, oh, I already am a perfectionist, I already know how to do this. It's actually something you're taking them on the journey with you. And one of the things we talk about a lot now in education is student voice and student feedback, and how important it is to give them a chance to feel like they've got ownership and connection with it. Are there any really cool tools that you have integrated that allow for that, or maybe stories of by integrating tools, it's boosted student voice and also boosted their engagement in the classroom with you?
Yeah, so one that really stands out is Microsoft Flip. And I think with that, and I'll show how I use that. So I send out a flip that the students record their name and the correct pronunciation. And I do this like the first week of school because I want them to show me their face if they're comfortable. And then they say their first and last name. And, a lot of students, they might use their middle name or maybe, a short name or et cetera, et cetera. And so that just really puts the ball in their court. Like my teacher cares enough about me that she or he is pronouncing my name correctly, is building that relationship from day one. And then as the year progresses, I like to create little grids like introduce your pet to me or your grandparent, or we did like a cooking demonstrations. And again, it's all student centered because I might be like sharing the idea or the assignment, but all the voices are from the students. And then I also felt that, and I still feel this way, that it builds community within the classroom because they're getting to watch one another's video, and that is really powerful. It's not just get up there and do a presentation. It's like building community that we're watching these videos and we provide feedback. I provide feedback. They also can provide feedback. And so I think that one really does it for me. I know the students, they love Kahoot and they like creating those, and that's been really fun. Jeopardy labs, we have the students actually create those like towards the end of the year, at the end of the course assessments, and then they are actually leading the classroom and all of the students are playing the Jeopardy. So anything that where their students are the focus, I find, they're probably more engaged as well. I'm happy to see them share in their own learning that way.
And that's so true. Anything that's about us, we're more engaged in things that are about us. It's a truth about all people, I think. And so it's a great way to kind of feed on that for students, especially if you have middle school. That's a key time when it really is all about me. So might as well emphasize that a little bit more with with that age group. That's awesome. Now, I know for you as well, it's not just about using technology for the sake of actually using technology, but it's boosting what's happening in the classroom. It's obviously creating a better learning environment for them. And one of the aspects about that is that social emotional aspect of helping the students to, like you said, build community, understand others, understand self. How has that evolved in your classroom, especially through COVID and now post-COVID? Fingers crossed that like that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so I think as first year teacher, I didn't quite understand the whole concept and maybe like even want to integrate it or like value what is SEL, what does that look like for me as an adult with my colleagues, with my students. And then right when COVID hit, I really felt like the culture and the climate of the classroom was so imperative just to like get kids logged on, turn their camera on, complete work, be mindful of their situation at home or what was going on. So for me, it is really the heart of what I do. And I start with a little daily, I share this too, a daily check-in, and they just tap a little emoji and they can, say happy, mad, sad, frustrated. I did that on Zoom too. And, they don't have to go and talk to me privately or answer out loud. I just want to create that safe space where they can tell me how they're doing. And then there's an optional part where they can just like type me a message and then maybe I'll follow up with them later. But that is just the first 5 minutes of every single class from August through May. And I really feel like you get that time back because they know that you care about them.
That's awesome. And it really is a very easy way to allow the tech to facilitate, because for them, they're comfortable with sending emojis, they're comfortable with GIFs or GIFs, however you want to say it, and with obviously memes and sending things. So speaking to them in a way that they feel comfortable is opening that pathway and that avenue for them being able to share, even if it's very brief. This is where I'm at. So, okay, this student is not in a mentally good space. I'm going to be understanding if they're not plugging in or connecting today like they normally do, or something's going on. It's gonna give you a good read so that you can better adjust how you're working with them as well, I imagine.
Yes, well said. And that's exactly why I do it, because I don't always have all the time to check in, how are you doing today? How can I help you in that way? But then I can quickly, look under the Google form responses, like 20 of them are happy, 2 are tired, 3 are frustrated, angry, upset. And then you're right, I can tailor my instruction. And maybe if I see one more a little bit reserved, then I'm just mindful, maybe something's going on. And a lot of times they do share. Sometimes they just say no, thank you. Or at times we can also provide other resources like the counselor, or if they need, to go get a drink of water or something. It's just being able to kind of like be a little bit more solution oriented than waiting till the class is over and I miss that opportunity, to even know what's going on.
That's awesome. And I think it's great, especially too, like that check-in, the factor that they have the means to communicate with you. It just opens a brand new set of doors, obviously, to allow the students to be able to communicate with you, and in a way that makes them comfortable, allows for you to check on things in a private way, so they're not feeling like, oh, I'm being called out. If I say something, everyone's going to hear me if I'm talking about this thing that's bothering me. So I know, especially a lot of teachers now are talking about the relationship with students was really suffering during COVID, not seeing them face to face. And now they're back in the classroom, even though they're physically there, the bond is different. It's hard to connect with them, and they're fighting even more to do that. Are there other things that you could recommend or suggest that would help teachers to reconnect with their students, or to get them plugged back in so they feel like they're part of that classroom community again?
Yeah, so a couple of things come to mind, and this is very simple. I have like a different Bitmoji of the day of myself, and I just put it on all the Google Slides, and it seems very silly and probably stupid to some, but I did have one student have a Google Doc of every one of my Bitmoji outfits, and I thought that brought me to tears. So I think it's just investment, and then giving students opportunity to work with you as the teacher, and as well as I'm big on activities or centers or rotations, whatever you call them, because I think it's important for, at least I can speak to this in middle school, to get them up and moving. Just what you said, they're on screen so much and they might not have been interacting with anyone, and so working on those people skills, and a lot of times the groups are really just at random, like we're just using random name generators, and it's just who knows who you're going to work with. And then other times I'll say, okay, we're working in famous pairs, and then they'll work with like peanut butter and jelly, and again it's just at random. And I think that's important to provide ongoing opportunities for them to connect. And then I always throw myself in one of the groups too, and I try to be a little bit more, I guess at their level. I try to listen what they're saying and provide a little bit of feedback, but really just be there to build them up. So I think more student-centered, obviously, and just trying different ideas, how you instruct with the classroom. I think kids are always willing, I feel like, to try the new things. I think that's exciting when they see their teacher like piloting new programs, or maybe instructing in a different way that they're used to the same kind of maybe monotonous way all the time. I would say that's how you can build relationships. And then this is also obvious, but I don't always see teachers doing this, is I think it's really important to greet your students at the door. And I'm talking from the little ones to high school 18-year-olds. And this is why it sets that precedent, like you're making eye contact. They can greet you with handshake, fist bump, smile. Sometimes they might even tell you something. And I think then they come into your classroom, and then you have whatever routine. But for me, if I don't greet them, and if I'm like running behind or maybe answering an email, I kind of feel like I had just lost that whole opportunity to connect one-on-one, and it's very fast, like 3 seconds per student probably. But I think the teachers who do that, they have like very strong culture. So I would encourage teachers, if they're not doing that, to go ahead and try that. And if they are, just keep that, because I think that's just a powerful practice for any educator.
100%. I love that what you said there about the culture, because sometimes we think about the culture of the school as a whole, and I know a lot of teachers feel like, oh, I can't individually impact that. That's set by administrators or by an overarching kind of vibe that happens in a school. But you do have control over the culture in your classroom, and even if students don't like school, they can still love your classroom and being with Miss Laura or being with whoever that they're going into, and that can make all the difference for their outcome, their day, and how well they plug in with other teachers and the rest of the things that they go through. It's a small little thing you can do that actually can make a big difference for them, which is awesome. And you also mentioned something about centers, which I think a lot of us, when we hear that, I used to be an ELA teacher for high school, we hear centers, I think of like my daughter in pre-K doing centers and moving around tables. And it's not something that I think is as commonly used in the upper grades, like later middle school and high school. It's very much a come in, sit down, you're in the desk facing forward. How are you incorporating that kind of center mentality into your classroom? What does that really look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I started in COVID, like digital centers, and then they would do like breakout rooms. And I try to do the best of my ability is student voice and choice. So I have a timer on the whiteboard for like 20 minutes. And then, so I'll group it, maybe 5 groups of 4 or something. So they all go, there's like QR codes sometimes where they're scanning something and that takes them somewhere else, or they're all one-to-one. And so what that looks like is roughly about 4 or 5 minutes in duration. They are working through a task, or they're playing like Kahoot live on the big board, or maybe they're doing Quizlet flashcards and they're all kind of like working together. Another time they're doing the Microsoft Flip with Play-Doh, and so that's very elementary, but like you said, I think they really long for that. Whenever I have post feedback, like what center was your favorite? Is there anything you want to improve? And almost all of them love working with their friends. Now, they might not always be working with their best friends, but I see them like smile more, they laugh, and I allow that. I want them to be a little bit more loose, because what you're saying is they could potentially be in a classroom 7 hours a day seated. And so that's just not my philosophy. So I think, you can do digital centers, and that's just, again, what I mentioned, like you could do the Pear Deck Flashcard Factory, you could have GimKit, Booklets, Quizlet, Quizzies. I mean, all the great tools, and that's really competitive, and middle school students love that. But then also give some tactile learning. That's with the Play-Doh that they like to do. You could do the whiteboards. They could do Jeopardy. I mean, it's endless. You could have a free choice. But they like doing Quizlet, the flashcards and the matching. And we try to race each other. So I think it's just fun. It's just something different. And, if you're ever having some negative energy in the classroom, just getting up and moving and kind of deflecting some of that off of maybe one student or even yourself. It just kind of like restarts, and I've just gotten good feedback from that. And again, it's a little bit of planning, a lot of planning, but then once it's happening, I feel more relaxed, because it's, just all going, and you're just really circulating for me. I just feel like I'm a guide.
And that's actually really important, I think, being the guy, because as a teacher, I think a lot of teachers, you have that kind of that movie kind of mentality of stand at the front, lecture for 50 minutes, you're just spewing information at them. But if you look at it as being a guide, you're helping to move them through education like a journey, and you're not there just like, all right, do this thing, but it's more about, here's an opportunity for you to discover, to explore, to find something new, to connect, which is lacking, I think, in a lot of classrooms. And it's great to see some more interactivity and more hands-on. Tactile learning is such a big thing. It doesn't go away when they get to middle school or high school. Like, it's still there, and they're craving that. They just don't know how to get it, especially in kind of your typical core classes. There's not as much happening in them anymore.
No, I agree. I think a lot of it's just so, what you're saying, lecture, and they're just, being cold called on, and then there's tests and quiz and homework. And I think I've just seen them relax a little bit more and be actually more engaged, because they want to take risk, and it is a different approach. So I think that's kind of why I'm seeing a lot of the positive feedback. And then I also provide, enrichment activities within those centers. Like if this was not enough for you, and I have a lot of students who just step up. And I think that to me shows their grit and their intrinsic motivation, because I'm not forcing them. I just say, here's some extra activities, and they'll come up and say, look at all the ones I completed. And I thought, good for you. So that's exciting to me, that they want to go ahead and do that. And I was just not seeing that prior.
But after you've made changes, and it sounds like you said, it is a little bit of work, but this obviously didn't all happen overnight. You slowly shifted into this and adding things through. So if a teacher is kind of listening to this now and they're thinking, or an ed tech coach or someone's listening, they're going, okay, I want this classroom like in my classrooms, but it's going to take a while. What are some good first steps? What are some things they could integrate in their lessons this year and start planning to do that are going to make a big change, or at least, start shifting towards the right direction?
Yeah, so what kind of helps me is I wanted to know, okay, how long are the centers going to be? And that's what I cited, 20-minute total is the longest I think we go for. And then do you want it to be 2-minute, 4-minute? Like how long are they at each center? And then how are you going to, I guess, transition them by a bell, clap, a chant, I don't know, a song, whatever. And that's just really for the transitions for the students, and then modeling that. So when I first open up centers to new fifth graders, I'm literally walking around the classroom, pretending like I'm doing the activity, having the timer go up, and then transitioning my physical body to group 2 and group 3 and group 4, and just having those groups ahead of time. Even if it's random groups, but already project those on the board, so you're not wasting time counting off 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, just have it already up there so they know exactly where and when to go. And then with the activities, of course, I'm big on ed tech, but it doesn't always have to be. Maybe you can give choice and voice. 2 of the activities could be paper and pencil if that's your style. And then 2 could be ed tech, and then I think for me, I have a formative assessment. Yeah, that's right. They have a Google form that they go to, and it says station 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they're actually having to check off that they did the task. And I know that might seem elementary to some, but I think, again, it's about accountability, that they did complete the task. And I'm getting all the data from their Kahoot game or Quizlet. So it's all data driven, because I'm getting all the feedback of how they performed on each center or the paper. So I would say, all in all, have your timers, how long you want your students to be at each center, have the groups already made, explicitly walk around your expectations, or have a student model with you, because you can't expect, maybe you can with high school, but you can't expect them to know how to be at all the centers in this beautiful way. It's possible, but you do have to be, again, their guide. But once you train them, I feel 1 or 2 times, then they know where to go. They know what the expectation is. So I think if you can just take time to do that, and work through the kinks, whatever works your style, but the timer, the grouping, and activities, and always plan for more activities longer, just in case, because you have those speedies, and you just want to make sure that you're prepared, that there's not any downtime if they're just sitting there.
That's a really good point. The backup plan is always a very good thing to have on hand in case, or you never know if the website's going to go down, or if something's not going to go where you want it to go. So having alternatives, like you said, just they get done faster, they get more done, and isn't that great? And if they don't, then at least they're getting the one activity that you wanted them to accomplish. They're starting something, which is good. And you had mentioned, obviously, the tech ones you're doing, through Quizlet and Kahoot, you're collecting that data. How does that inform, then, your instruction? So you've got, the results back to these things. What are you looking at, and how are you using that to kind of drive what happens next?
Yeah, so I look for 2 things, individual accuracy and then whole class accuracy. So our big goal at the beginning of the year is 80% class accuracy. So when it's live and we're playing Quizzes or Kahoot, I want to see 80% accuracy. And then, of course, there's outliers. There's students who are getting hundreds, just every single time. And so with seeing their results, I can really check in individually. If we're 50%, 40, then I really need to reteach and pull them aside and provide just more supplemental resources and really help them out. And then the opposite, if they're hundreds, then I obviously have moved probably too slow, and I need to just deepen they're learning in that way. And then what I really like about looking at the whole accuracy is usually just naturally one or two questions will be always missed by a majority of students. And then that's where I just know that I didn't teach that very well at all. So I'll go and reteach that like the next day on the bell ringer. But if I'm seeing a lot of green, 90%, 85, then I'm feel like, okay, majority have probably got it. But usually, again, there's one or two that I think, okay, was it worded? Did I word it very confusingly? Was there a typo? I don't know, something wrong. So that just provides like that instant data check for understandings. And then the students also, they're getting that feedback. It's not from me, right? But they know like getting it correct. And a lot of them, they're, oh no, I got under 80, so I need to retake that. And so that's really good that they're kind of like internalizing that. And I don't do it out of punishment. I just feel like if you're not understanding it, then we need to practice again. And then that's where they can take, like the flashcards Quizlet from our Google Classroom, or retake a Kahoot at their own pace, just for reinforcement.
That's awesome. So they're able to use that tool, you said, that for their own self-assessment, they can gauge. And there's something nice about being able to do that and go, uh-oh, I didn't do a good job, but like no one else knows, no one else has to know necessarily. And even if they do, everyone's doing the same thing. So no one's paying attention to anyone else's scores. They're not paying attention enough to know what's happening. So it's good for them to then be able to, oops, let's go back, let's relook at this. That they're looking at the questions they missed, trying to figure out why they got it wrong. And I guarantee they will remember when summative test time comes in, we have to do something. They're gonna be like, I remember that question I got wrong. We did the Kahoot, and I know it's this instead. Like it'll stick with them in a way that maybe it wouldn't have if it was just a raise your hand, got it wrong, oh darn, didn't have a chance to kind of correct and reassess on everything.
Exactly. And that's what I do like about those, they're getting the feedback and then they see the accuracy, but it's not shown for everyone, where you're right. I think at middle school, I've seen it personally and felt it. When you get it incorrect, it's that social pressure, like the whole world's crumbling down. And then, they, even if maybe you said the right answer back to them, they might have already been thinking about who they're trying to impress, or you just lose that student for the rest of the day, or perhaps a very long time. So that's why I try to stay away from that, because I just feel like this is more engaging. And like you said, they'll remember it because they've got to retake, the test eventually.
And that's amazing that, like you said, we were understanding who they are as people. We're understanding kind of what outside of school they're about themselves. They're looking what everyone else is seeing about them. It's these common things we know, and it's using it to our advantage as teachers to say, how can I springboard this and give you a good learning environment to help you feel confident and comfortable, but to not beat yourself up for getting things wrong, or to not disconnect just because you got the wrong answer. So you're giving them a good, comfortable environment to do that, which I think is brilliant. And everyone should be doing that as much as they possibly can. So, well, if you, the universe out there, are interested in learning some more helpful things, you can check out Laura at Technology Laura on Twitter. Is there anywhere else they can find you or follow you to get some tidbits or tips to learn about EdTech in the classroom?
That's primarily the biggest one. That's the same handle that I have for Threads and Instagram. And then I have a couple articles on Edutopia. It's under, I think it's linked on my Twitter, just some other ideas and like further explanations of what we've talked about. But I hope to connect with other passionate educators as well.
Yeah, so give Laura a follow on Twitter for great resources and to learn more about ways. I've seen all of your tweets, and not all of them, but I have seen your tweets, and I love how it's bite-sized, it's digestible, it's good information, things like, oh, I could do that in my classroom just by taking a look at it and integrating it. And of course, I know you're always engaging with people on there, asking questions about what they like, resources they need. So it's a great community, obviously, to be a part of and to benefit from everybody else. But we greatly appreciate your insights into the ed tech world and things that you have shared with us today. And we will be following you on Twitter and hope to catch you later on another episode of NetSupport Insights. But thank you, Laura, and thanks everybody for watching. Bye, guys.
Thank you.